Almost a year ago, at their annual Lock and Load convention, Privateer Press teased a new game set in the future of their beloved fantasy steampunk setting. One that took both a small step and a giant leap 5,000 years in the future. Today, we learned a lot more about Privateer Press's new miniatures game, Warcaster Neo-Mechanika. Warcaster Neo-Mechanika is a skirmish-based sci-fi miniatures game set to be released via Kickstarter later this year. It is set 5,000 years into the future of the War Machine and Hordes universe, where humanity has taken to the stars after the desolation of their homeworld Kane at the hands of the nefarious Infernals. A unifying theme of a lot of Privateer Press's storylines is the rapacious abuse of power,
Mark III's theme forces.
and Warcaster Neo-Mechanika continues that proud tradition by making the central conflict of the game a resource war over a power source known as Arcanescence. Like all of Privateer Press's other titles, the game appears focused on resource management, where Arcanescence tokens flow through the mechanics available to you, such as buffing powers called ciphers that you can play on your units, or empowering your unit's weapons by assigning them Arcanescence tokens. Your troops are functionally limitless as long as you have Arcanescence tokens available to reinforce them by warping them out of warp gates that you can deploy on the battlefield, which no doubt makes positioning and scenario play significantly more important in the game than simple attrition. The most interesting aspect of this release is Privateer Press's willingness to move the narrative of their game forward into the far future, something that Games Workshop itself has been frightened to do for literally decades. In Warcaster Neo-Mechanika, we see the logical extreme of their steampunk fantasy universe, a future where Warcaster magicians are roided up with Arcanescence to amplify their powers and command their troops from VR rigs thousands of miles away from the battlefield. The game also follows in the footsteps of War Machine and Horde's art style, which is brightly colored and cartoonish, basically the tabletop equivalent of an anime or manga. In both the art style and universe, the previews so far give the impression of a mix of Infinity and Shadowrun, a classic combination of fantasy tropes spliced with futuristic technology and bound together in a kid-friendly space opera with bright lights and colorful colors. So far, the two starter set factions have been shown off: the Iron Star Alliance, which have a smooth, corporate, power-armored design, and the Marcher Worlds Coalition, who are ragtag and rugged military troopers. More factions have been teased, but no previews of them have been spoiled as yet, and I assume that we'll see them during the Kickstarter once it launches. Warcaster Neo-Mechanika is scheduled to launch via Kickstarter later this year and will be available for demo at Adepticon this March and Lock and Load this coming June. Overall, the game looks like a good draw for players who are already invested in the continuation of the War Machine storyline, but personally to me it doesn't appear to have anything to offer outside of that brand association. It's entering a crowded area of the gaming space, and while the models they've shown are cool, like almost all other slick sci-fi IPs, they just pale in comparison to those of Infinity. Some of the models are even further limited by static, awkward poses and bizarre design decisions like these enormous weird staff things carried by their Weaver solos. Very few of the mechanics have been shown off, but what they've mentioned so far isn't that exciting. It's a straightforward alternating activation game with some resource mechanics shoved in and the ability to respawn troops, but whether they can avoid the gross imbalance issues that respawning models always introduces into games remains to be seen. So what do you think of Warcaster Neo-Mechanika? Will you be picking up this new sci-fi game from Kickstarter and adding it to your collection? And if so, what's drawing you in? Let us know in the comments below, and go ahead and drop a like and a sub if you want to hear more awesome tabletop gaming news. And happy wargaming, folks.